The ultimatum came as a piercing interruption to life across the solar system. On Earth, in the midst of a quiet evening in Tokyo, the skies were suddenly alive with shimmering auroras, a side effect of the alien broadcast hijacking every communication channel. On Luna, miners paused mid-shift as their tools fell silent, replaced by a cold, alien voice echoing from their helmets. Even the bustling Martian colonies, where dust storms raged outside pressurized domes, stood still as the broadcast forced itself onto every screen, every speaker. The voice was unmistakably alien, a distorted mix of clicks, hisses, and guttural tones, translated into chilling clarity by some advanced linguistic algorithm. It spoke with the air of an executioner reading a sentence. "Humans of Soul," it began, the words ringing across light years of history and hubris. "You are hereby given 72 Earth hours to submit to the Arachni Dominion. Resistance is futile. Surrender, and your integration will be painless. Refuse, and your world will burn." The message repeated 3 times, as if to hammer home the inevitability of their doom, before the skies returned to their natural hues. Shock and panic. For a moment, there was silence, as if the entire solar system had held its collective breath. Then chaos erupted. On Earth, news anchors stumbled over their words as they tried to make sense of the transmission. Social media platforms exploded with theories, panic, and bravado. Conspiracy theorists claimed it was a government ploy. Others speculated it was an elaborate hoax. But deep down, most people felt the icy grip of dread. This was real. In New Geneva, home to the Solar Federation Council, the leaders of Earth and her colonies convened in an emergency session. The holographic conference room was a whirlwind of voices, the hum of debate filling the air. Representatives from every major power, Earth's nations, the Lunar Alliance, the Martian Confederation, and even the Jovian Trade Guild, crowded the chamber. Despite centuries of political tension, the imminent threat forced them into uneasy collaboration. "They'll annihilate us," cried Chancellor Dehan of the Martian Confederation. "We need to negotiate immediately. Maybe we can convince them to leave Mars alone." "Negotiate," barked General Okachukwu of the SDF. "Do you think these bugs came all this way to make deals? They've likely already planned where they'll plant their flag." President Iyad Mahmoud, a calm yet commanding presence, raised his hand for silence. "Enough," he said, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "We must hear from the one person who knows what it will take to face this threat." A calculated calm. All eyes turned to Fleet Admiral Sophia Kwan. She stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, her uniform immaculate, her expression unreadable. Kwan was a legend in the Solar Defense Forces. Her victories in the Orion conflict and her reputation for turning impossible odds into triumphs made her the one person every leader wanted in their corner. Kwan stepped forward, the room falling silent as her voice, calm and deliberate, filled the space. "They think we're weak," she began, gesturing to the holographic projection of the Arachni fleet. The display showed a swarm of bioorganic ships, their jagged forms pulsing with eerie energy. "They think we're just another species to crush under their heel. But they're wrong." Her gaze swept the room, her words carrying the weight of certainty. "The Arachni operate on fear. They've won so many battles without a fight because their enemies chose surrender over resistance. They've grown complacent, arrogant." She turned to President Mahmoud. "Mr. President, we can beat them, but it will take everything we've got. A legacy of defiance." Kwan's confidence wasn't misplaced. Humanity's history was a long, bloody tale of defiance against impossible odds. The solar system had once been a fractured mess of rivalries and wars, but centuries of struggle had forged a new unity. Humans weren't perfect, but they thrived under pressure. When pushed to the brink, they innovated, adapted, and endured. It wasn't just Quan who believed in humanity's resilience. Across the colonies, others began to rise above the fear. On Luna, engineers brainstormed ways to weaponize mining lasers. On Mars, scientists recalibrated weather control systems to create devastating electromagnetic pulses. In the asteroid belt, privateers and prospectors armed their cargo ships, ready to join the fight. Humanity had a motto, etched into their collective psyche over generations: adapt and overcome. The first plan. Quan leaned over the central table, inputting commands into the holographic interface. The projection shifted, zooming in on the Earth-Moon system. "We don't have their numbers," she said, "but we have something they don't. Creativity, individuality, surprise. They're a hive mind, predictable, coordinated but rigid. We'll use that against them." She outlined a 3-stage plan. First, they would disrupt the Arachni's hive mind communications with experimental quantum jamming tech. Second, they would draw the fleet into a false sense of security with Gungnir, the quantum cloaking system that created phantom fleets. Finally, they would lure the Arachni into a trap near Earth's atmosphere, where planetary defenses would deliver a devastating blow. "Will it work?" asked Prime Minister Okoye of the Lunar Alliance. Quan's response was immediate. "It has to." The war room. The room erupted in renewed debate. Some called the plan reckless. Others argued there was no other choice. Through it all, Quan stood firm, her presence unshakable. Her confidence began to spread like wildfire. Leaders who had arrived paralyzed by fear now found themselves nodding, their resolve hardening. President Mahmoud addressed the room. "Admiral Quan will lead the defense. You have the full support of the Solar Federation, Admiral. Whatever you need, it's yours." Quan saluted sharply. "We'll make them regret ever setting foot in Seoul." As the meeting adjourned, the leaders dispersed to prepare their people. Quan stayed behind, staring at the holographic display of the Arachni fleet. Her mind raced with calculations, strategies, and contingencies. Under her breath, she muttered the words that would become a rallying cry across the solar system. "Is that all?" The Arachni didn't realize it yet, but they had just made the worst mistake in their history. The solar system unites. For centuries, humanity had teetered on the brink of unity. Divided by politics, ideology, and resources, the Solar Federation was more a delicate balancing act than a true alliance. But the Arachni threat shattered the old boundaries in an instant. For the first time in history, the full weight of human ingenuity and determination was directed at a single goal: survival. In the lunar shipyards, the faint hum of machinery became a roar as production ramped up to maximum capacity. The massive orbital dry docks surrounding the moon churned out warships and drones day and night. Engineers worked without rest, bolting on armor, installing experimental weapons, and retrofitting civilian freighters for battle. Mars, with its vast array of research facilities, became the nerve center for technological innovation. Scientists and hackers from across the system converged to refine humanity's arsenal. Quantum physicists perfected Gungnir, the cloaking system that would render entire fleets invisible or project phantom forces. Cybersecurity experts crafted viruses designed to disrupt the Arachni hive mind. Out in the asteroid belt, independent miners and prospectors repurposed their rugged, heavily armored vessels into a guerrilla fleet. Their leader, a grizzled spacer named Tessa D'Angelo, transmitted a message to the SDF. We may not have fancy weapons, but we've got guts. Point us at those bugs, and we'll give them hell. The secret weapon, deep beneath the Andes Mountains, a hidden facility buzzed with activity. Few outside the highest echelons of the Solar Federation even knew it existed. Officially, it was a geothermal research station. In truth, it housed Project Ragnarok, a last-ditch weapon conceived decades ago. The weapon was a hybrid of human and alien technology salvaged from long-forgotten encounters. A massive quantum energy core powered an array of emitters capable of unleashing an electromagnetic pulse of unprecedented scale. The pulse would short out the neural circuits of any arachnid ship or drone within its range. The scientists overseeing the project worked around the clock to prepare it. Dr. Elena Markov, the lead physicist, was haunted by the weapon's destructive potential. "This isn't just a shield," she whispered to her assistant late one night. "It's a sword. If we use it, it could change everything." Rallying the people. Even as the military prepared, Earth civilians were mobilized for survival. Cities were fortified, their skylines bristling with newly installed defense turrets. Underground bunkers expanded rapidly to shelter the population. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, ready to fight or aid in the war effort. In a rare moment of unity, humanity's media focused not on fear, but on defiance. Broadcasts across the system featured messages of hope, resilience, and determination. Videos of children helping build drones, or farmers shipping food to Martian colonies went viral. A reporter on a refugee ship interviewed a young boy clutching a makeshift wooden sword. "Why aren't you afraid?" the reporter asked. The boy grinned. "Because we're humans. We don't give up." The calm before the storm. Admiral Kwan stood on the bridge of the SDF Titan, humanity's flagship, watching the final preparations. Fleets were aligning, weapon systems powered up, and the countdown to the arachnid's arrival ticked down. Kwan addressed the fleet through a system-wide broadcast. "This is it," she began, her voice calm and commanding. "They think they can break us. They think we'll fold. But we're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to show the galaxy what it means to be human. We adapt. We endure. And when the dust settles, we'll still be standing." As the clock hit 0, the stars above Seoul rippled with the arrival of the enemy. The arachnid arrive. The arachnid fleet emerged from hyperspace like a black tide spilling into the system. Their ships were grotesque, organic constructs that seemed to pulse with life. From the smallest fighters to the massive carrier beasts, each vessel moved with eerie precision, their hive-mind coordination turning them into a single, unstoppable organism. Sensors picked up thousands of ships, a swarm so vast it blotted out entire regions of the sky. At the center of the fleet loomed their flagship, the Chrysalis Eternal, a vessel the size of Earth's moon. It radiated menace, its surface a labyrinth of glowing veins and jagged protrusions. On the SDF Titan, Admiral Kwan stood tall as the reports flooded in. "Enemy fleet detected," said Lieutenant Ramirez, her voice tight with tension. "First wave approaching at 0.7 light speed. Estimated time to engagement, 10 minutes. Kwan nodded, her expression calm. "Let's give them a warm welcome." The Phantom Fleet. The arachnid launched their first wave. Thousands of smaller ships surging toward Earth. They encountered nothing. No resistance. Just a silent void of space. Then the Gungnir system activated. To the arachnid, the void came alive. Hundreds of human warships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding them in a brilliant display of firepower. The Phantom Fleet opened fire, unleashing a storm of plasma and railgun rounds. The Arachni reacted immediately, their vessels scattering and returning fire. But their weapons passed harmlessly through the illusions, while hidden human ships moved in for real strikes. EMP mines detonated among the swarm, and drone fighters darted in, delivering devastating blows. Aboard the SDF Hermes, Captain Rafael Vega watched the chaos with a grin. "They're buying it," he said. "These bugs don't know what's real and what's not." The Gungnir system worked perfectly, sowing confusion and forcing the Arachni to expend resources on ghosts. Counterattack, but the Arachni weren't so easily fooled. Their hive mind adapted, recalibrating their sensors to filter out the illusions. They launched a second wave, this time led by massive carrier beasts. These leviathans disgorged swarms of drones that filled the void like a black cloud. Quan watched the new wave approach, her expression grim. "Phase 2, she ordered. From the asteroid belt, Tessa D'Angelo's guerrilla fleet surged forward. Armed with mining lasers and kinetic harpoons, they attacked the carriers with brutal precision. Meanwhile, Martian railgun platforms fired tungsten slugs at near-light speeds, punching through the carrier's organic armor. The battle was chaos, a maelstrom of fire, metal, and desperation. Human ships darted and weaved, exploiting the Arachni's rigid tactics. The drones swarmed relentlessly, but the automated defenses on Earth and Luna worked overtime, shredding the smaller craft before they could reach their targets. The first victory. After hours of relentless combat, the first Arachni carrier exploded in a brilliant fireball. Cheers erupted across the system as the human forces pressed their advantage. But there was no time to celebrate. The Chrysalis Eternal began to move, its massive form dwarfing everything else in the battle. From its center, a pulsating glow intensified. On the SDF Titan, Quan's fist clenched. "They're charging their primary weapon." She turned to her officers, her voice like steel. "All ships, focus fire on the flagship. We're not letting them fire that thing. Not on my watch." The real fight had just begun. The rise of the Chrysalis Eternal. The Chrysalis Eternal loomed over the battlefield, like a god of destruction. Its bioluminescent veins pulsed rhythmically, emitting waves of sickly green light. As the glow intensified, sensors across the system picked up massive energy fluctuations. Every human commander knew what that meant. The weapon was preparing to fire. "Estimate on that weapon's charge?" Admiral Quan asked sharply. 70% and climbing, ma'am," replied Lieutenant Ramirez, her voice strained. Quan nodded. "Then we don't have time for subtlety. All ships, prioritize that target. Make them bleed." From the bridge of the SDF Titan, Quan watched the battle unfold in real time. The holographic display showed human fleets converging on the Chrysalis Eternal, like wolves attacking a massive prey. Railgun slugs, plasma torpedoes, and laser beams rained down on the colossal ship. Smaller Arachni vessels threw themselves into the fray, sacrificing their lives to shield their flagship. On Earth, the Global Defense Network came online. Orbital railguns, stationed on massive space stations above the planet, aimed their barrels at the Chrysalis Eternal. The first salvo was fired, 6 tungsten slugs, each the size of a small building, accelerated to near-light speeds. The slugs impacted the Chrysalis Eternal's hull, cracking its organic armor and sending chunks of bioluminescent flesh spiraling into the void. But the behemoth didn't stop. Instead, it retaliated. The flagship strikes back. With a soundless explosion, a wave of green energy rippled outward from the Chrysalis Eternal. The shockwave disabled several human ships instantly, frying their systems and leaving them adrift. The Gungnir cloaking systems flickered, exposing the real human fleet to the arachnized sensors. On board the SDF Valhalla, Captain Amara Chan cursed as the lights dimmed and her ship groaned under the strain. "Damage report," she barked. "Gungnir's offline. Shields at 30%, shouted her first officer. Chun gritted her teeth. "Then we fight bare-knuckled. Helm, full speed ahead. Ram anything that gets in our way." The Valhalla surged forward, its massive guns roaring as it carved a path through the arachnized swarm. Other human ships followed suit, their captains knowing that hesitation now meant certain death. The secret weapon is revealed. Despite humanity's courage, the Chrysalis Eternal's weapon continued to charge. On the SDF Titan, Admiral Kwan clenched her fists as the readouts ticked upward. "Dr. Markov," she said over the comms, her voice steady. "Is Ragnarok ready?" In the Andes Mountains, Dr. Elena Markov stood in the control room of the Ragnarok facility. The massive quantum core hummed ominously behind her, its power threatening to overload the entire mountain. Markov hesitated, her hands hovering over the console. "Admiral, you know what this will do," she said. "It won't just disable their fleet. It could destabilize every piece of quantum tech in the system." Kwan's jaw tightened. "And if we don't use it, billions will die." "Do it." Markov closed her eyes for a moment, then slammed her hand down on the activation panel. Deep beneath the mountain, the quantum core released its energy in a burst of light. The pulse expanded outward, invisible but devastating. Arachnized ships froze in place as their neural circuits overloaded. Drones spiraled out of control, crashing into each other or self-destructing. Even the Chrysalis Eternal faltered, its glow dimming. Seizing the moment, "This is our chance." Kwan shouted, "All ships, fire everything you've got." The human fleet surged forward with renewed vigor. Railgun slugs ripped into the Chrysalis Eternal's wounded hull, and plasma torpedoes found weak points in its armor. On the SDF Valhalla, Captain Chin ordered a full-speed ram, driving her ship directly into the enemy flagship. The impact sent shockwaves through both vessels. The Chrysalis Eternal began to fracture, its organic structure collapsing in on itself. But as it died, it unleashed one final act of defiance. Its main weapon fired. A beam of green light lands toward Earth, unstoppable. The beam tore through space, a lance of destruction aimed directly at Earth. Even with planetary shields, the energy it carried was enough to incinerate entire continents. For a moment, humanity's survival hung by a thread. On Luna, a last-ditch effort was underway. A team of engineers had repurposed a mining laser into a crude but powerful weapon. From its lunar base, the laser fired a continuous stream of energy directly into the path of the beam, attempting to dissipate it. "It's not enough," one engineer shouted. "The beam's breaking through." The heroic sacrifice. In the chaos, the SDF Titan surged forward. Kwan's voice came over the comms, calm but resolute. "Helm, intercept course." All power to forward shields. The crew froze. "Admiral, you're not serious." "This is an order." Kwan barked. "Earth's survival depends on it." The Titan, humanity's flagship, hurled itself into the path of the beam. The shields flared, absorbing the brunt of the energy. The beam fractured, scattering into smaller streams that the planetary shields could handle. The Titan, however, paid the ultimate price. Its hull buckled and melted, its reactors overloaded, and its crew gave their lives to save billions. Victory With the chrysalis eternal destroyed and the beam neutralized, the remaining Arachni forces crumbled, leaderless and disorganized. They were hunted down by human ships or forced to retreat into hyperspace. The solar system was littered with the wreckage of the battle, but the stars shone once more. On Earth, the news of victory spread like wildfire. Across the system, people cheered, cried, and mourned the lives lost. Humanity had endured, but at a great cost. Aftermath. Admiral Kwan's sacrifice became a legend. Statues were erected in her honor, and her name was whispered with reverence across the galaxy. Earth's defiance sent a message to the stars. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the Solar Federation rebuilt, the galaxy watched. The Arachni, once thought invincible, retreated into the shadows, nursing their wounds. And humanity, battered but unbroken, prepared for whatever came next. Because when the stars looked down on Earth, they now saw a species that refused to bow, a species that fought with everything they had. And the stars whispered, "Is that all?" Picking up the pieces, the solar system was a graveyard of debris. The Arachni fleet had left countless shattered hulls drifting through space, human and alien alike. On Earth, the skies were streaked with the fiery trails of wreckage entering the atmosphere, some landing harmlessly in the oceans, others striking uninhabited areas. Across the colonies, the mood was bittersweet. Humanity had won, but at a staggering cost. The losses were counted in the millions. Entire fleets were reduced to scattered survivors. Cities on Earth had been damaged by debris strikes, and Luna's infrastructure bore the scars of near-relentless drone assaults. Mars, though spared from the worst of the fighting, sent its resources to aid in reconstruction efforts. In New Geneva, the Solar Federation Council convened in an emergency session. The chamber was quieter than usual, its members subdued. The empty chair reserved for Fleet Admiral Sophia Kwan was a stark reminder of the sacrifice she and her crew had made. President Iyad Mahmoud stood at the center of the chamber, his voice carrying a heavy weight. "Today, we mourn the fallen," he began, "but we also honor them. They fought not for conquest, not for glory, but for the right to exist, for the future of our species. Their sacrifice will not be forgotten, nor will it be in vain." The room erupted in applause, but it was laced with grief. The galaxy had learned of humanity's resilience, but the cost was etched into every face. A new era. The battle against the Arachni marked a turning point for humanity. The Solar Federation, once a fragile alliance, was now a symbol of strength and unity. No longer divided by petty rivalries, humanity's factions worked together to rebuild. The destruction of the Arachni fleet also created a ripple effect across the galaxy. Species that had been living under the shadow of the Arachni's dominion began to rise up. Emboldened by humanity's victory, they launched their own rebellions. The Arachni, once an unstoppable force, found themselves pushed back on multiple fronts. The legacy of the Titan. Admiral Kwan's story became the stuff of legend. The SDF Titan was remembered as the ship that saved Earth, and its surviving crew members were celebrated as heroes. Statues of Kwan were erected on Earth, Luna, and Mars, each inscribed with her final words. Earth's survival depends on it. In the Martian capital of Valles Marineris, a massive memorial was unveiled. At its center stood a holographic projection of Kwan, her gaze fixed on the stars. Beneath her image were the names of every crew member who had served aboard the Titan. Crowds gathered daily to pay their respects, leaving flowers, messages, and tokens of gratitude. The ghost of the Arachni, though their fleet was shattered, the Arachni were far from gone. In the months following the battle, scouts reported strange activity on the fringes of human space. Broken fragments of the hive mind tried to regroup, but without their flagship, they were disorganized and leaderless. On a distant world in the Sagittarius Arm, remnants of the Arachni built a new hive. Their once arrogant tone had changed. Now they spoke of humanity with fear and hatred. "We underestimated them," hissed one of their queens, her mandibles clicking furiously. "They are not prey. They are predators." The message, humanity's victory, didn't just echo across the galaxy. It resonated deeply within its people. In the months after the battle, the Solar Federation decided to send a message. Using powerful hyperspace relays, the broadcast reached every known civilization. The image of Admiral Kwan appeared, her voice calm yet commanding. It was a recording made before the final battle, her words aimed at allies and enemies alike. To the species of the galaxy, humanity has faced extinction before. We have been tested, again and again, by forces stronger and more advanced than ourselves. Each time, we have prevailed. Not because we are the strongest, but because we are the most determined. She paused, her eyes piercing. To those who seek peace, we extend our hand. To those who seek war, we have one question. Is that all you've got? The broadcast became an interstellar rallying cry. Oppressed species took heart, and those who once dismissed humanity as insignificant now reconsidered. The future beckons. Years passed, and humanity rebuilt stronger than ever. The Solar Federation expanded its reach, forming alliances with species once oppressed by the Arachni. The Martian colonies became the hub of advanced weaponry and exploration, while Luna's shipyards churned out vessels capable of traversing the deepest reaches of space. On Earth, the scars of battle were slowly healed. Cities rose anew, fortified and gleaming, a testament to humanity's ability to rise from the ashes. In schools, children learned about the Battle of Seoul, not just as a war, but as a story of resilience and unity. The next frontier. In a small cabin on Mars, retired Captain Amara Chin looked up at the stars. She had served with honor and seen the cost of victory firsthand. Yet, as she sipped her tea, she couldn't help but smile. "Is that all?" she whispered to the night sky. It wasn't a challenge this time. It was a promise, to herself and to the universe. Humanity wasn't finished. There were still stars to explore, mysteries to uncover, and challenges to face. And if the galaxy ever dared to threaten them again, they would be ready, because humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to thrive. Epilogue. The whispered name. In the dark corners of the galaxy, among the ruins of the Arachni hives and the fading empires of tyrants, one name was spoken with reverence, fear, and awe: humanity. And for every species that dared to rise against them, the question lingered in the void. Is that all?